President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket. We now have confirmation from a member of Congress and an exclusive report from the Daily Mail confirming this news. Biden will be replaced very soon. We're going to get into those details here in a second. But first, the White House in full panic mode, and here's why. Watch.
CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton is with us. So where does the race stand among African-American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it simply put has not yet. So this is the margin, or Biden and Trump among black voters, compare where we were at this point in 2020, compare where we are now. You know, at this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African-American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for a Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
And when you dig into this number here, what is the makeup of that number?
This is where we get very interesting. So I decided to dive deeper into the crosstabs, figure out where is it that Joe Biden is truly struggling among black voters. All right, so this is black voters, Biden versus Trump margin. Look at black voters age 50 and older, and you'll see, look, Joe Biden was leading amongst this group at this point by 83 points back in 2020. Now it's 74 points. So, yeah, a slight decline in that margin, but nothing out of this world. Look at black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks. Holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down towards. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless, because you always look at history and you go, okay, this is a historic moment. If this polling is anywhere near correct, we are looking at a historic moment right now where black voters under the age of 50, which have historically been such a big part of the Democratic coalition, are leaving it in droves.
Okay. Someone in the chat says, that's racist.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's neo-racism to tell
Neo-racism.
people that they should believe something because of the color of their skin.
So that's why the White House is in full panic mode. That, among other reasons, trying to censor videos of the president wandering off stage, wandering around fields, falling asleep during world meetings. It's a disaster, absolute disaster. Here is Biden team calling for social media disinformation censorship after the G7 mishap. Now, many of you may have seen this where he sort of meanders around in the field there, and Georgia Maloney has to like come over and corral him back in. Look at the New York Post headline today, Meander in Chief. Biden embarrasses U.S. with confused wanderings at the World Conference. And this wasn't just the only one. It was multiple. And so here was that moment where he just wanders off as these parachutists are coming down. Watch.
Also, last night, awkward moment with President Biden where he was looking very doddery. He was wandering around. He sort of wandered off, and Giorgia Meloni, the Italian premier, had to sort of guide him back to the crowd. It was quite painful viewing. Everyone's putting a slight brave face on it this morning. We've got some more for that for the paper tomorrow. But yeah, you can see from that footage yourself. It's this is getting embarrassing now. And you do really wonder how President Biden is going to be able to run an election campaign in October and November for re-election. And if he won, is that a man he really thinks is going to get through the next 4 years?
No, the answer is no, you won't. And that's what we're going to get to here in a second. Now, the Biden campaign spokeswoman says these videos are disinformation. So, that's fake news, what you just saw there, him just wandering around. It was him. He was really captivated by something. It's not.
Well, what they're explaining is you see him looking at another parachuter, and all the other world leaders are looking at the one who's just landed in front of them. So he's kind of like, well, that one's cool too. Like a child, not sure where everyone is supposed to be putting their attention. So you can see it was kind of Giorgia Meloni to go and guide him, clearly. But
and also it's technically misinformation because we don't have all the facts. We didn't see what he was looking at. You know, disinformation is if you've seen the facts, you know them, and you're outright saying that's not true.
Right.
This is misinformation because we don't know. We don't know exactly what he was looking at.
It almost doesn't matter. They had planned that all the world leaders, we were going to interact with this thing, and Biden doesn't understand the plan. That's just, doesn't matter what he actually was looking at, even if there was something interesting somewhere else.
So this is what their campaign is saying, that these things are, you know, disinformation, misinformation. But how can you hide this from Saturday night, where President Obama has to literally lead Biden off a stage because he doesn't know where to go? And this one went viral over the past few hours. Watch. So there they are saying goodbye. Obama walking off. Here we go. Let's go. And he just stands there. White House says, and there's Jimmy Kimmel. Let's go. Let's pull you off. Let's pull you off, Mr. President.
Like, oh, he's been standing there too long.
I mean, just look at the two of them, you know? Like, you okay? You okay? Let me walk you off all gingerly. Let me just follow this.
This is fine.
Follow the red arrow on the floor. See
just
that
like
red
old
arrow?
times, Joe.
And just look at his hands when he walks now. He like keeps them perfectly like straight down and does. And I saw a doctor was saying that that's a sign of mental stuff. But like he's like this, mental you know, stuff. And he kind of does this now. When he used to be like all animated and everything.
Yeah.
Definitely want to go to a doctor that says mental stuff.
What do you have, doctor? Mental stuff.
You have some mental stuff. Mental stuff, doctor. This video was just leaked, though. So now we know that was the end of it. Now we see this. The video just leaked showing Biden, because someone filmed it inside. I guess they weren't really allowed to use phone cameras or whatever. This is Biden stumbling over his words. This is such an embarrassing moment here. So Obama's just like looking on as President Biden. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. Watch.
And guess what? It's growing. The economy's growing. People are doing better. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have more people. We've had over 15 million people brand new hired into the workforce. You know, my son says we all have we all have various short-term descriptions for your jobs, for what you accomplish. And you should say Joe Jobs.
So Adrian,
that was the punchline.
Yeah, I guess
that was the punchline.
That was the punchline of the joke. Adrian Elrod from the Biden campaign explains how this is disinformation. So she went on MSNBC to say, he's like, all these videos you're seeing of the president wandering around, stumbling over his words, can't put a sentence together, and the private meetings that are people, it's all just, don't worry, it's all just fake news.
Disinformation is alive and well. We have to use surrogates and voices across the country to combat this and make it clear that not only do we not play this game, but to your point, President Biden was out there literally representing America at the G7, saluting our troops, doing what he does as president of the United States. And look, we're going to see more of this. I mean, this is just the reality of campaigning in 2024. So we have to combat that disinformation. We have to hit it hard when it happens and make it clear that these are dirty tactics that MAGA Republicans are using because they can't run on the issues, Lemire. They have to use these dirty tactics like this because they are not right with Americans on the issues. So we're going to see more of this. We're going to do what we can to combat it. But it does take the voices of surrogates across the country. It does take the media to call it out. It does take social media platforms where a lot of Americans are getting their information to point it out as well.
Yeah, so you guys have to do your part. You guys have to fight disinformation. So when you see President Biden wandering off, you need to go on social media and say, he's not wandering off. He just saw a rabbit jump into the forest.
No, that's exactly what I saw liberals doing just today, saying this did not happen. That's all. Like, here's the video, and it did not happen. I've seen it. And in fact, Colin Rugg, I think is his last name, has a great summary of all of the people who said exactly that. That's gaslighting.
So they're following. They've marshaled their bots. The Biden administration has marshaled their team of liberal social media people to go out there and just basically say, as a surrogate, she's like, we need to get our surrogates. And she says the media, MSNBC, you're doing a great job here. You're fighting this, MSNBC. You've got to push this out there.
She says this is the reality of running for election. What she's missing there is if you're senile.
Right.
Yes, that is the reality.
And I was going to point out, it's the media and Mark Hamill.
Right. You need Mark Hamill and Jack Black, apparently, over the past 20 years.
Yeah, they're both great
over the
surrogates.
past.
Oh, God.
Well, those at the G7, though, this is the important thing, right? So you can have these videos of him wandering around a field and you can try to combat that disinformation. But it was those that were at the G7 who are interacting with the president. These are officials. And she's labeling it disinformation, but officials who were there know better. Listen.
What was going on? I mean, obviously, most G7 summits are diplomatic sprints. You expect to see the President of the United States, as other world leaders, doing a flurry of meetings. Has he been doing the same thing?
No, he ducked out of the dinner last night. And frankly, Jack, I'm gonna ruin my story for the paper tomorrow by telling it to never mind the ballots. But my sources, diplomatic sources here, people I've been speaking to, say it's the worst they've ever seen Joe Biden. Wow. And he's in a bad way, and he's losing focus in meetings. Sometimes he's very sharp, sometimes he's very much not. So some worrying developments there, and an exclusive news story to never mind the ballot.
Yeah. So, yeah, the people that were in private meetings. So I'd love to see how they want to spin that as disinformation. These are private meetings with officials who are saying and going on the record to the newspapers saying this is the worst they've ever seen him. Like he's just like losing. They can't even have a conversation with the guy. Well, he's totally demented.
It's like Jean Pierre. She'll always make excuses. Oh, he runs circles around us. He's as sharp as a tack. And it's like they'll just say, well, he was just tired. He was on a flight, and they just make excuses for this. But it's like it's disgusting that they're parading this man who obviously has something wrong. I said mental issues. I meant to say dementia, but I wasn't sure if it was Alzheimer's or dementia, so I didn't want to say definitively. But they're just parading this guy around and it's disgusting.
Yeah. And especially when you remember how much the media loved talking about removing Trump for competency towards the end of his presidency. And that was the story. The story now is them working equally as hard, saying he's really fine, what you see. And so nobody has spoken in the liberal media about removing him for competency the way that was the story around the end of the Trump administration.
Well, we now have confirmation that, yes, President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket before the November election. Congresswoman Luna confirmed to Fox News that this was the case.
With currently what's coming out of the White House, that, a lot of people realize that Joe Biden's likely not going to be the nominee, which is, from what we're hearing on Capitol Hill, Jesse, Representative Kiley had reported that Kamala Harris actually eyeing a run for California governor because of it.
Right. That's the backup plan. So you are hearing also in D.C. that Joe Biden isn't going to be the Democrat nominee?
Correct. It appears that our colleagues are trying to put guardrails on a 2024 presidential election with President Trump.
So that's unbelievable. And then on the heels of that, the Daily Mail just about 4 hours ago reporting that, yes, this is going to happen, that Biden will be replaced on the ticket, and how Hillary Clinton, Obama, Pelosi, and Schumer are coming together and will topple the aging president when they do it. This is the plan that's been worked on.
So that's the group of Democratic kingmakers.
Exactly.
It's Pelosi, the Clintons, and Chuck Schumer.
And President Obama. And Obama. Okay. So the Daily Mail
They decide, guys, not us. Not the electorate.
So the Daily Mail has revealed that if Joe loses in the first debate with Trump, or if his polling numbers keep falling like they have, it'll take a united front of liberal grandees to make Joe basically throw in the towel, according to the reports. The only people who would force him out would be Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, according to the Daily Mail. It would have to be one of the four of them collectively. Mrs. Obama, who has no close personal feelings for the Bidens, according to one well-connected Democratic source, flat out ignored the invitation, will not be involved in it.
What?
Strategists theorize, according to the Daily Mail, that Democrats would have to hold a public event to symbolically transfer power from Biden to a new candidate. Absolutely, this would be the case. Handing over the baton, basically. And arguably, I think this is really interesting. Nate Silver over at the 538 noted that Biden's average approval rating has reached a new low of 37.4%. And the number one concern among voters is his age, which Silver said was an extremely understandable concern, as Biden acts and looks his age is a huge outlier to ask for the job until he's 86 years old. That's a huge polling factor in this. But here's, I think, the really interesting piece of this is that Atlantic columnist Mark Leibovich basically says and cruelly sort of stamped the president as Ruth Bader Biden. And basically saying that that's a reference, of course, to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who angered a lot of liberals while Obama was president and didn't step down so that he could replace her. What they're saying is that this is his moment to not pull a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that Biden should step down for the good of the party, hand it over to Gavin Newsom, and allow Kamala Harris then to take over. She'll run for governor of California. And this will be the move that, according to the Daily Mail and according to Congresswoman Luna and other Democratic strategists and sources,
why wouldn't
they would do
she
this.
step up to run for the presidency? Because they realize that she's so unpopular.
She's so unpopular and totally incompetent. But you can, as we know by being governor of California, you can be incredibly incompetent in California.
Yeah.
And
could you imagine having to sit through one of her State of the Unions?
Oh my God. Well,
like this word salad,
that would actually be better because it's scripted. So she'll just read off a teleprompter. It's when she speaks extemporaneously that's almost as bad as President Biden. So, again, President or Gavin Newsom. So Politico has this piece, of course, on Kamala for governor. They have a whole big piece about, yes, she should be the governor of California. See all these pieces coming together for the liberal media right now?
I see it.
Do you see it?
I see what you're laying out for me, my darling.
And then Gavin Newsom wants nothing more, of course, as we pointed out here, than to be president of the United States. He's been saying all of the right things. He's been praising Joe Biden, not insulting him one iota. Here he was on Alex Wagner. We showed you this, but this is like one of the most disgusting displays of like sycophantic behavior. Watch.
Who in their mind would want to run when you have someone of such esteem as our incumbent president of the United States, with a record of accomplishments and a man of character, a man of decency? I'm old school. Talk about loyalty. I'll go to ends of the earth for this guy. I really would.
Yeah, sure you would, because you're about to become the Democratic nominee, Gavin Newsom. So there you guys go.
Republicans in California have been warning about this for a long time, that he is running a shadow candidacy for the president, and they've been watching him and trying to warn us. So for Californians, this may not be a new revelation, but for the rest of us, we're like, what? We have to, all right, here we go.